expressed on the internet would be censored.
We are live. We are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, UOPod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
I literally went to the polls with nothing in mind. I saw a can of orange soda in the parking lot. And I was like, yeah, there we go. An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I got to vote for Trump, dude.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate. It's absolutely mental.
I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of offensive when you talk so much about the Loch Ness Monster.
Political climate.
And Andrew, treat yourself, okay? Especially if you start, I don't know, getting in good with homeless people.
Unauthorized Opinions, streaming everywhere at uopod.com. Cock-a-doodly-doodly-doo, man. Thai Rivera, legend of comedy. Already, I think we can call you a legend. So early in, I don't know. I don't even know how old you are, but I went with that. Welcome. Where are you joining us from? Is it in Texas?
I am in Austin, Texas still, even though my YouTube would probably make it seem like I've been run out of this town. I'm definitely still in Austin, Texas.
Perfect. Well, I wanted to reach out to you and speak to you because the perspective you're giving on a lot of this pride stuff, a lot of the I won't say I don't know how many, but a lot of people in general won't touch, but it is gaining momentum in the backlash. And I don't think it's in a hateful way, the pride stuff is getting backlash, but I think it's just people are no longer putting money towards it. There's not as much money behind it, and there's not as much money that's in support of it. And I would wager to say that people are actually trying to remove their money from going towards that sort of stuff. And I saw you do a video about Target rolling back their pride stuff being released in select stores in certain areas. Why do you think they started to do that? Why do you think that this time around they're limiting their stuff in stores?
Because whenever it comes to LGBT, what happens is the people that are in charge of the marketing for that just go too crazy at a point and start trying to do things that even nobody in the community is really asking for. Like when it comes to marketing towards kids, nobody's asking for that. You know, I mean, like, especially when it comes to pride itself, like that's a big thing right now where people are like, pride is great for kids. And it's like, since when? Because we've always had kids at Pride because lesbians make mistakes. That's the reason we've had kids at Pride. And so it would just be like, okay, you want to come celebrate, but you got your kid, come on, I guess. But it was never like a push to have kids. And that's what happened with Target was they started having the books for kids on gender ideology and that kind of stuff. And then also with the tuck-friendly bathing suits, that also was a thing. And so the marketing for it was just off. And it seems weird that they had been doing it for several years before and not marketing it to kids. And then all of a sudden they market it to kids. And then we end up where we are now.
Now, do you think that it's an issue that they've basically just moved their stuff to online? It's not like they're saying we don't believe in this anymore or we regret it at all. They're just saying we've moved it out of some key areas, probably where they sold the least or something to that regard, or where they got complaints. And they've completely moved. I looked at this today. They've removed it in those stores, but they say everything's available online. We're going to do all these initiatives. We're going to take part in, I think, the Chicago Pride Parade it was, or wherever their headquarters is. Maybe it's Minnesota. I'm forgetting. And they're going to make sure they do all these initiatives going forward. Do you see that as a problem, or do you think this is just, we kind of want to hide what we're doing, or do you think it's not anything at all other than them trying to make money where they can?
I think that's exactly what it is. They're just trying to make money, and I don't blame them. That's what they're there for. I mean, I think gays, people of different ethnicities, whatever you are, if you think that any corporation or business actually supports what you are, you're stupid. It really is about making money. And are you marketable? Are you profitable? That's what it is. It's not about, oh, Target loves gay people. No, Target didn't love gay people. They don't hate gay people. Back in the day, you could say that a lot of people were afraid of that kind of stuff, when it came to like people in general being homophobic was an actual thing, like when I was younger. But in the last 20 years or so, things have been pretty chill. And if people can make money off of you, they will. But if they're getting complaints, and like the stuff that's put at the front of the store, anybody that's ever worked in a store knows how this works. The stuff that's put at the front of the store is what you're trying to draw people in with, what you hope people will see first and get like, oh, I want to buy that. I want to get one of those. So if it's not moving, and even worse, it's making people mad or making people turn around and walk out, then why would you keep it at the front of the store? So that's what happened with some of the stores, was they put it towards the back, and then for some it's just completely online, which makes sense. And if you're gay, you're used to that anyway, because most of our brands are sold online anyway. Like if you actually support LGBT owned businesses, that usually is stuff that's sold online.
What's your take on the sports leagues doing it, and maybe more in general their complete, disregard for the audiences when it comes to pushing political messaging? And I'll bring up an example in the NFL where about 9 teams right now haven't done anything pride related. Some teams have gone over the top, like one of the teams is pushing, that the gender unicorn and coming out if you're a teen. They're pushing resources towards that sort of stuff. Why do you think sports leagues jumped on this? It can't. I don't think that they're making a whole bunch of money off of this, and it's caused a whole lot of backlash. I mean, they acted pretty quickly on the kneeling stuff. Why is it taking so long for them to sort of do the same thing for pride stuff, do you think?
Because a lot of gay people don't have lives, and if they think you're not supporting them, then they'll just start harassing you. That's what'll like. I know how all this works because I've been the subject of LGBT cancellation before, and what it is it's a few gay people that really have no lives, and they'll create like 10 different email accounts and times 10 or 20 of them, and so they'll just start sending email after email to different places, and they'll word them slightly different. But if you pay attention, you can tell it's the same person or coming from some of the same people. And then, sometimes it's even lazy, like a copy and paste. And then, the business thinks like, oh, we're getting all these emails that are threatening us. Maybe this is an actual thing. And it causes a little bit of a panic for them. And I think that happens with sports teams too. That push is kind of ridiculous though, because there are gays that really do enjoy sports. That stereotype about gays just completely not liking sports is not true. There are gays that do like sports. There are trans people that do like sports. But when it comes down to it, I don't really think that we're a market that they have to specifically cater to. And also, I don't think that there's a lot of us that are expecting that from them.
Yeah, I think that can be said for a lot of different things. Like if I think about the TLC shows, I'm not expecting them to inject some sort of large swath of manly content into the 90 Day Fiance series or something like that, or 600-pound life. What's this? What's
A
this
super
story?
masculine 600-pound man.
Yeah, he's just a
male rights
professional
activist.
wrestler. What's
That's
the
the best.
story about you getting canceled by other gay people? I am not familiar with this. Can you talk about that if it hasn't been beaten to death?
Oh, that's happened several times. Probably 4 or 5 times now. Sometimes it's the trans community. I mean, I do a joke about it where the first time I got canceled by the trans community, I don't remember what I said. I'm sure it was something true though. Like that's what it is with these people, is you tell the truth and they get mad at you, and they don't realize that I'm a person that's had lifelong trans friends. And so the way I come at it is different for them, because I don't use that as an excuse for anything, because I don't think I need an excuse for anything I say. I say things I say because I want to or because I feel them, and people can feel however they want about that. But when it comes to me speaking specifically about trans people, I just don't treat that like trans people are made of glass, and that will bother some of the activists, and then they'll be like, oh, you're being transphobic, and it's like, no, I definitely do hate everybody about the same amount at this point. It's not specific to trans. I just get annoyed with certain things. But what happened the first time was, Oh, I had gotten into an argument online with a trans woman, and it was on Trans Day of Remembrance. Because they like her girlfriend had shared an article that she had written for Medium or something like that, and it was just like, like her girlfriend shared it with the caption like LGBT, strength and pride and whatever else. And so I was like, I woke up that morning and I rolled over. I was looking at Facebook and I saw it. And then I was like, well, I'm in the mood for a little bit of LGBT pride. Read this article real quick. And it was just the whiniest thing I had ever read before. And so I shared the article and was just like, this is the whiniest thing I've ever read. And so then her girlfriend started trying to argue with me. This is about 2015, something like that. And her girlfriend was trying to argue with me. And I was like, you're new to being LGBT. Your boyfriend just turned into your girlfriend 9 months ago. And then she was like, I can't believe you're doing this on Trans Day of Remembrance. And I put up with that for her saying it like for 2 or 3 comments. And then I was like, stop trying to make it sound like Trans Day of Remembrance is a thing. That is new because this was 2015. I know the history of all this stuff because for some of it, I lived through it. And so it's like, this hasn't been a thing. It's like you trying to start shit on the first day of Kwanzaa. Nobody cares. And so, then I just said some stuff that I knew would bother her, because she was claiming to be a lesbian. And I was like, well, if you can still choke on your girlfriend's dick, then you're not really a lesbian. And that's the way I went at all of that and I used the word fag quite a bit, which I know you might have to bleep or whatever. But I just told them, like, don't forget, you're arguing with the real fag right now. It's not going to be the same situation as when you argue with straight people.
Oh, I'm
And
dying.
so then that turned into a whole thing where they were trying to get me canceled. And I was supposed to do this LGBT pride event. And so they started this campaign. And that's when I first saw it with them, like, having whatever, like, 10 people send 10 emails. And so it looked like they were getting 100 emails. And so the organizer of the event, at first, he was like, no, we stand behind having you on. And then I was like, okay, cool. So then the day before, he hits me up and he's like, hey, we're going to have to cancel you. And I was like, hey, this is a day before. So if you cancel me, you're still going to have to pay me. And I'm not going to trust you to pay me later. I'm going to show up at the event, at the actual event. So if they're protesting out front, I'm going to get my money from you. And then I'm going to show them the check and I'm going to tell them that I appreciate them making it so I got paid without having to work. And so he was like, okay, well, we'll call you right back. And so then he called me back and said that, they were going to go ahead and have me on after all. The people that were threatening to protest did not show up to protest because I was in contact with somebody at Breitbart at that point because they wanted to do an article about it, like kind of how the left is eating itself type of thing. And so they were like, okay, well, what would make this article is if you can get footage of these people protesting. And so I went and got all the way ready, expecting these people to protest, had my phone ready to record them, and then nobody was there. And so I started off my set by telling the audience, there was a situation where they were trying to cancel me. People were claiming that I'm transphobic, homophobic, and racist. I plan to prove to you during this set that I am all of those things. And the audience just lost it. I had a really great set. And then afterwards, the councilman from that district presented me with an award that's actually on my wall right here, a certificate of appreciation from the city of Los Angeles. And so I posted a picture of me shaking hands with Mitch O'Connell is his name, I believe. No, sorry. Mitch O'Donnell, maybe? Yeah. Mitch O'Donnell is his name. And I know he's not the councilman for that district anymore. It's District 13. Mitch O'Farrell. There. That's right. See, all I have to do is read and then I know who it is. But yeah, so I posted a picture on Instagram of me shaking hands with him and getting my certificate. And I was like, you fags are going to fuck around and get me a key to the city if you're not careful.
Oh my goodness. You're like Ari Gold. You should be an agent strong arming people like that.
Yeah, well,
Shout out Jeremy
because
Piven.
I hate when people concede to these people because they're not going to do anything anyway, as was proved by the fact that not a single person showed up to protest. They just say it because they know that they can bully these people. And why should I not work and not get paid because you, as an LGBT person that probably has been out a lot shorter time than I have, has an opinion about something I say? I tell people I've been hanging out with trans people before most of you felt pretty. So I don't know why I'm supposed to like curb what I'm thinking or what I'm saying because you all of a sudden decided that you were a girl.
I've heard from some of the comedians that have been protested that a lot of it's not real. That Sam Walker, a Canadian comedian, told me recently that the people that protested him were convicted gang members that were hired to regather outside of a venue. But in my experience with political protests, unless you're going to like a BLM or one of these Palestine protests, I mean, the people there won't, at the big ones, probably won't be hired. But at some of these smaller protests, you're looking at people who have been paid through donations by a large like environmentalist group. I'm thinking of one that happened at the Toronto City Hall, where they were paid by an environmentalist group who raised about $30,000 to $40,000, and then the rest was filled out with just homeless people. They allowed the homeless people to sleep in the tents. I'm serious. The homeless people slept in the tents overnight, and then the 10 or 12 like 20-year-old activists literally stayed in a hotel next to City Hall that was like $200 to $400 a night. So it's not like a lot of these threats that people get at comedy clubs, they are fictitious. But I also don't blame somebody when it says, we're gonna set your building on fire. Me personally, my stance is never cancel at all, and deal with the consequences, because you shouldn't be allowing people to bully you like that. But I do understand if somebody's business or their family's being threatened or something like that. Did that happen in any of those cases where people threatened any violence, or was it just we'll stand outside there with the furry suit on and yell?
No threats of violence. These losers won't actually do anything. I have no respect for these people because it's like you want me to treat you better than you'll expect the outside world to treat you. And I don't know how that's supposed to work out, because at least I come at it from a way, because nothing I say is truly transphobic or homophobic. If you were to listen to anything I say, it's all what it's supposed to be. And the purpose of what I do is not just to make people laugh, but I'm an LGBT comedian, specifically a gay comedian that performs in redneck clubs. And so with what I do, what happens is, yeah, they get laughs and they have a really good time because I am really good at what I do. That's what stops a lot of these people from being able to come after me the way that they want to. But what happens with me is I will really make an audience laugh. They'll really like me. And then afterwards, they'll ask me questions. And that's where you can educate people on what LGBT is. And so I've taken a lot of people, and this is no lie, because I've been doing this for 21 years. I've been doing stand up for 21 years, and most of it has been done at redneck clubs. And I've taken a lot of people through social media from just liking my comedy, then following me on social media. And I'll take them from being homophobic to truly being open minded and, wanting the best for me and looking at me as like a way for them to support the gay community.
Yeah, something interesting that I was told in an interview recently was that the DEI stuff. This was from a guy who produced video games and sees how much they're pushing it in that. He said that the audience isn't afraid of seeing gay people or seeing people of any particular race or gender or whatever. It's just that the product has sucked. Like if you were doing this alongside and it wasn't pre-planned as part of an agenda and the product was good, then obviously, as history has dictated, I don't know, up to like 6 or 7 years ago, and the product didn't suck, people wouldn't have a problem with it at all. I look back to when people try to say, there was no content for black people in the 90s. And it's like, just because you didn't see Fresh Prince or Eddie Murphy movies or Family Matters doesn't mean it never existed. Okay. I'm sorry that I didn't have a problem with people being black that I looked up to when I was a kid. It's a really weird argument that people make. And I think it's similar case that you're saying is when people find out that you're a good comedian, it doesn't really matter what you do or how you live your life as long as the product's good. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with like there's so many obese comedians and nobody says like, I'm not going to like this guy just because he's fat. I can't handle this. So as long as the product is good, which I think has been shown with your comedy and with a lot of the people who are new to this like whole watching Kill Tony, which is where I first saw you, and watching all these other shows that are these comedy clubs that are springing up in Austin. I think people start to realize that, the comedy does win and the talent is what wins. And that's sort of what people are asking for, I think. Do you agree with that? Like, do you think that, as a whole, it sort of was never said that the talent and the merit's supposed to be what rises to the top, and now for some reason we have to push back to get to that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that is all the way around kind of what the problem is. And I always point to Oprah when people try to act like it's necessary to push these things. Because Oprah, fat, black, and a woman, should not have been a big deal. And she was up against Phil Donahue, straight, white, relatable man. She ended up taking over that entire slot and created that entire genre before she decided to step it up and stop doing like the trash TV. But she really was the one that popularized that point to where like Geraldo ended up happening and Jerry Springer and Morton Downey Jr. if you're old enough to remember when that was going on. But it's like that's like a perfect example. Like that's a person that should not have made it. When it comes to Roseanne Barr, not an attractive woman, nothing against her. I love Roseanne Barr. I'm a huge fan. But when she was younger, wasn't what you would consider like a sex pot or a beautiful woman. She was just a very kind of frumpy housewife type. She became the biggest thing on TV. And when it comes to LGBT and female as well, the industry just picks the wrong people right now because the industry does pick people based off of who's going to say the right thing and also who has the look that they want. And that's not a good way to pick stand-up. So then people start thinking women in stand-up suck or LGBT comics suck. And it's like, no, just what the industry picks sucks. But there are a lot of good female comics. There are a lot of good, well, let me not start lying. There are not a lot of good LGBT comics. There are a lot of shitty LGBT comics. But there are a few really good ones.
What do you make of the groups that have popped up that are fighting back against the men in the women's locker room, the transgender athletes? There's the one I believe is called Icons. I forget what that stands for, but that's the Riley one, predominantly pushed by Riley Gaines. Do you think this is a necessary thing? Do you think it's mainly to get notoriety? What's your opinion on groups like this who are saying, we're going to draw this line in the sand here?
Unfortunately, I think it is necessary because if not, then these things just happen and nobody stops them. Like sometimes it seems like that, but I don't think people understand that if you're going to be that kind of activist, you almost have to be borderline ambulance chaser, because if you just go on the causes that I guess you could say legitimately warrant that level, then they're going to be fewer and further between. But if you pick like the big ones and the small ones and kind of blow them up to what they have to be to serve your purpose, then more people will end up hearing you. Because like there's the different levels where sometimes I'll watch things because I am on the side of women being able to put their foot down and saying that this is for us. I'm 100% on the side of that. And so I don't think that trans women athletes belong in women's sports, not only for physical reasons, but also just because can't women have anything? You know, I mean, like it seems to me that women should be able to have their own spaces and their own sports and be able to make their own records and not have to worry about men. And when it comes to locker rooms, that is, I mean, like, I don't know if a lot of people at home have ever seen a trans woman naked, but it is jarring the first time you see it. You know, I've seen it a lot because my friends had no shame and would get naked in front of me because they were getting ready. It wasn't like ever in a sexual or gratuitous way. It was always just very functional, you know, like but a lot of my friends did drag shows and stuff like that. So they'd be changing or that kind of stuff. And we were all very open. But the first couple of times I ever saw a trans woman naked, that was a lot for me to take in, and I'm a gay man who's used to seeing men naked. So when you have a college age girl and now she's in the locker room with that, I could see how that would make her a little bit uncomfortable. And I think that she should be able to express that. And with, you know, when it comes to scholarships and stuff like that, women are losing out on a lot of things right now because trans women who are genetically male are taking over their spaces. So I think it's necessary. I think it's unfortunate that it's necessary because I think a lot of this stuff is common sense, but as long as there's a cause for them to be there, I support them being there. You know, J.K. Rowling is another one that has really taken a hard stance on that. And I think people like her are especially necessary because she's got enough money that she can say, fuck it, I'm just going to go all the way in on this. And I don't have to worry about anybody firing me or any consequences. Where a lot of the people that feel that way have to keep their mouths shut because they don't want to lose their jobs.
Yes, and whoops, sorry. And the rumor is that Leah Thomas just loved letting it fly. I'm pretty sure I heard that a couple places from the girls who were on the team. Riley Gaines and the other one. He's just letting the hammer fly all the time, specifically on purpose. Good guy, I heard. What else do I want to ask you about? I want to ask you about, you know, you've been in the game a long time. I want to ask you about one of my favorite comedians, William Montgomery. I know you've been on when he's on every episode. So what is it about William that I think that has made him blow up so much? Now we've seen Cam Patterson, Casey Rocket, all these people, of course.
Yeah.
What is it about William? And this is a selfish question on my part because he's one of my favorites. What is it that you think made him into this machine that he is?
I really do think when it comes to William, it's one of those cases where he's a person that's just as lovable off stage as I think you can kind of imagine he would be, even though he does that crazy character and whatever else. I think it shows through that he is like a lovable guy. You know, I mean, like it's kind of that's why people like it so much. You know, I ain't never gonna stop and that kind of stuff. Like you know, it's all still kind of lovable, but. I think that's what's showing through on William and why so many people like him so much. Because as a person, because that's a person that I had a really good relationship with whenever I do the show or whenever I'd be at Mothership. You know, William is just one of those guys for me that I would really talk to quite a bit. And he just is really, really a good guy, you know, and so I think that has something to do with it. Cam Patterson is a similar situation. Casey Rocket as well, you know, but Casey is a little bit more introverted, so I think that maybe that's kind of what keeps him from maybe because people definitely do love him, but I don't think they have that same connection with him that they have with like William and Cam. And I think it's because they're so like Cam is just outwardly lovable when you meet him. You know, he's just that's just his whole thing. Cam is one of the people that even with the success he's had so far, which has been huge, he still will walk into a comedy club and literally say hi to everybody and shake everybody's hand. When it comes to all of the comics, all of the open micers, he just walks in, shakes everybody's hand, gives everybody a bro hug. William Montgomery doesn't really hang out like that, but he still has that energy where it's just, and I think that that's part of it. And also, Like if you look at William, like just his work that he does on Kill Tony, even though he'll have his notes with him, he is just a really great joke writer. Week after week, he does come up with new jokes.
When a new comic comes into town and you guys think, wow, this guy's great, what's an example where a person really screwed it up, where it's just like they've got all the tools, but what did they do to really fuck themselves over? You know what I mean? Is there any examples of that? Don't give any names if you don't want to, but does that happen? Because I know in my
Me?
industry, yourself,
Yeah.
what'd you do?
I joke, but it's kind of true, well, what happened, if I were to talk, let's see, who would really, I don't really know, because that's part of like, it's part of the game when it comes down to it, because I was doing a lot of stuff here in Austin. I was at Mothership all the time. I really had a good thing going here. But then I got tired of kind of the way that the system works, because Austin has, which I don't mean to break your heart here by talking about Austin in a bad way if you're really invested on the Austin scene. But Austin is turning into kind of being the traditional LA Hollywood system. It's just different people running it. And so when you're on the inside and you start to see the way that it works like that, and then you get sort of like, oh, I didn't come here to just do a different version of LA. I was in LA for 14 years and I left there because I realized at a point that I wasn't going to be an industry comic. Like, I don't really care about the things that people in the industry will care about. And so this became a similar situation. And then I just, told the booker of the Mothership, after trying to address it with him in a polite way, then I just basically told him he sucks and he's not a good, he's not a good booker, and that he was booking his friends and that kind of stuff. And then, so that, if you're too opinionated, that will become a problem in this business, even though a lot of people will act like, no, it's not really. It's, yeah, if you like, we'll let people know, hey, I just think that, you're not good at this job. But also, like, when it comes down to it, I'm always going to work. I've been doing this for 21 years and I'm really good at it. So I don't suffer the same consequences some people do, where it's like they'll completely get shut down or whatever. Like with me, things are a little bit different. But with the newer comics, what's something that'll really torpedo them? Drinking too much sometimes will torpedo them, and not in the way people would expect, because some people don't realize, they think they're just having a good time, but they're an asshole when they drink. And some people don't realize that. So they'll get drunk and piss everybody off. And, you can get away with that a couple of times, but after a while, people just get like, okay, well, maybe we don't want them around. And then you start getting banned from green rooms. And then, before you know it, you're not really being asked to do shows anymore. And so that kind of thing will happen quite a bit.
Yeah, it's funny the first couple times, then it stops being funny. I think in my field, I'll call it, even though I am trying to blur the lines, the move of I'm done with this, I'm over it. Everybody in this industry is fake, and they leave for 2 years, and they come back, and then they're just like, actually, you guys, I need to make some money here. Here's my views. They're slightly different now, but it's the whole leave, come back. And now you're beyond everybody. Now you're more enlightened than everybody. I see a lot of the enlightenment path being taken these days by people who I think it's because they can't really get along with people personally, but I see a lot of the, hey, look, I'm smarter than you guys. I'm smarter than you, and I can tell what the narrative is, and you can't. Like the whole 4D, 12D chess thing. That's what I'm seeing a lot of lately, and I saw it a lot when Trump got convicted, however long ago that was now. Where they say, you know what, Trump may have been convicted, but that was what they actually wanted, you guys. This is what their actual plan is, to get you to think that Trump isn't the choice of the establishment. And I'm like, okay, I can see that argument, but it happens 5 or 6 times in a row where you're just basically saying everybody's stupid, and I can tell what's going on. So that's my industry gripe at the moment, I think.
Yeah, what you just think people are like they think they know more than they actually know. You think that's what the problem is for a lot of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I had this problem during the lockdowns, when somebody would post a video and it would be, a guy sitting in his kitchen, and there's nothing wrong with making content in your own home. All I'm saying is that would typically be the person who says, I have a contact in special forces in the military that says they're about to enact martial law on the streets of New York City, and everybody's going to be forced into their apartments like in China. And then it's sort of like this thing where these people act like they have a greater access they have access to an internet that I don't have and that nobody else has. And that's just not the case. These people aren't talking to, the highest levels of government. They aren't talking to military insiders. And just in this case, right now, people don't have this special access or special knowledge that they're claiming to have. And I think that what it ends up being, it manifests itself from being ostracized a little bit from, saying that people are dumb and that you have the answers.
Yeah, I think for a person like me, when it comes to kind of like, because I burnt everything in Austin. I'm going to be clear about that. But when it comes to a person like me, I think sometimes you need to do that kind of stuff so that you can completely concentrate on your own thing. Because I really was tired of being out at the clubs as much, because I was booked on everything. I was like doing a lot of stuff. But when you consider what you're getting paid to do a lot of the things that I was doing, and then you consider what you can make creating your own content, and then you consider the amount of time it takes, because I'm sure if you're making quality content and you're actually editing, you're not just doing live streams, which nothing against. I do live streams every once in a while too, but like the edited content takes so much time. And so if you're at a comedy club to get, say, $30, and which mothership pays 100, but it's still not a lot of money, but if you're at a comedy club for like $30 and you're going to be there for 2 or 3 hours, well, that's 2 or 3 hours less that you're spending on creating your own content, on doing your own editing, on promoting your stuff, like making sure everything's posted the way it needs to be posted. And right now, with the way everything works, there's so many platforms that you have to create things in several different formats a lot of times to promote different things, like as far as Instagram Reels and video for X, and then video for YouTube, and then whatever else you're thinking about, TikTok sometimes. And so like sometimes I feel like that's why a person will do things, is because they just need to clear everything else so that they can work on their own stuff. And there's no other way to do that sometimes than just telling everybody to fuck off. It's true. You know what I mean? Because otherwise you just keep getting asked to do things and you keep saying yes. And it's almost like a people pleasing type thing at a point where you're like, yeah, I know I should stay home and do this content, but instead I got asked to do this show, and now I'm doing this show, and now I'm going to another one, and now I'm hanging out at Mitzi's for a little while, and then after that I'm going to go to the creek for a couple hours, and before you know it, when you would have had to be at the club for 2 hours, now you've been out for 5 to 6 hours. And so instead of going home and doing the stuff that you're supposed to do, by that time, maybe you're a little bit tired and you're like, okay, well, now I'm just going to go to sleep. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes, So sometimes when you're a little bit too popular, it's like, that's the reality of my life. You know what I mean? Like, and nobody in Austin would deny this, by the way. Like, any of what I'm saying, like sometimes people online will be like, this guy's so full of himself and he doesn't. And it's like, you don't know my life. Nobody in Austin ever disputes this. Like, I had a friend of mine get hit up because they asked him, they said, because they weren't familiar with me. They had just seen my stuff online. And it was when I was talking about Austin on my podcast. and this guy hit one of my friends up and said, "Hey, did I've been hearing about this guy, Thai Rivera. I know he's in Austin. I know you're in Austin. He claims to be really good at stand up." He was like, "But you know how people are online." And then my friend told me this later on. He said, I responded to him and told him actually he's underselling it. And that's what most people that know me from this scene will tell you, because I'll go up if there's two people and I'll fucking kill it. I don't care how small or how big the audience is. I'm still going to be me anyway. And I am really good at stand up. And so, like, sometimes when you are like that and you're getting asked to do everything, then there does come a point where, yeah, maybe there's other ways that you could have done it, but that's what felt the right way to me at that time. And I really did think when it came to me dealing with that particular situation and that particular booker, when I came to him with full respect and was really just asking him, like, hey, can we fix this situation a little bit? I'm not getting as many spots as I'm supposed to be getting. I've been told there's people that are doing the same amount of time that I'm doing that are on my level, or not even, don't even have as many credits as I have, or haven't been doing this as long as I have, that are getting paid more money than I am for the same thing that I'm doing. So can we correct that? And then I like get told in other words but similar, like a kick rocks type response. Then at that point, if I tell you to fuck off, then I think that I'm within my rights to do that. Why is it you can tell me I'm not shit, but I can't tell you you're not shit?
I can definitely relate to the not being able to bite my tongue aspect of your life that you're telling me about. I definitely lean towards that side in my in my life, as opposed to the other side of not telling people to shut up. So that we have in common, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think more, really what I think needs to happen is more people need to do it, because more of these people need to hear that kind of stuff. And I don't mean just anybody. I mean, if you're actually good at what you do, then at a point, because it's exactly like I'm saying when it comes to the industry, there are a lot of people, and I'm not going to name any names, I'll save that for my podcast, but there are a lot of people in this industry right now that are getting a lot of opportunities that they really shouldn't be getting just based off talent. And it's like, I get it, you have a particular look, I get it, you will say the right things, like if you want to take a really like big one that like everybody kind of got fucked on, was Hannah Gatsby. When it came to Hannah Gatsby and Nanette, it's like, I get it. She's queer and she's a woman, but now she's not a woman. I think she identifies as a trans man now. But, at that time when Nanette was the big thing that everybody was pushing. And so all of us hearing from every industry expert and reading on things online, including myself, was like, this must really be amazing. And then we actually run to it and watch it, and it's like, this is shit. And then you actually say it's shit, and a bunch of people hit you up trying to be like, oh, you're just anti-woman. And it's like, no, that's not even about the fact that she's a woman. This just sucks. And so more people should be saying these kinds of things. Talented people should be saying these kinds of things, because otherwise, what happens? We just get more and more of that. Now, Hannah Gatsby, if you haven't paid attention, more recently, she put out this LGBT like showcase of LGBT comics, and everybody on that special sucks. It's just a bunch of like her taste, and it's all clapter. It's none of it's like good stand up. And that makes people less likely to want to go watch stand up.
Is she the one who did the commercials? Hold on. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, she might be a guy now. What can you say about that? All right, Thai Rivera, burning bridges, taking names.
Yeah, well, I don't
That's a
think I
special
did
name right
anything
there, by
too
the
bad
way.
on this one. I didn't think I don't I think I was I can tell that you like the Austin scene, so I was trying not to like, put you in an awkward position. I want you to be able to go to the mothership if you come to Austin.
Thank you for that. But I'm not. I I want to go there, yeah, but I'm not planning on. I don't think I'm gonna strike it big in comedy. Who knows? Who knows what I have up my sleeve? Internet.
Are you a comic? Do you do stand up?
No, No, I don't.
No?
No, I wish. I'm one of those people who's just like, I could go anytime and just kill, man. Which obviously isn't true. I
The
could
kind
show
we
up
all
and
hate.
they'd all see, man.
And Sam Walker, you mentioned him. He's one of the Danger Cats, right?
Right.
Yeah, I love those guys. Those
Mm-hmm.
guys are great.
Those guys are wonderful. They were protested. The jokes that they were protested for. Clearly, nobody paid attention to what they actually said. And to protest somebody's joke about a serial killer is wild. I think. To get mad about him having a shirt about a serial killer and prostitutes is wild. So that's the state we're in Canada. Is the government actually takes a position on jokes. That's the state we're at up here.
What about this video? Like, how much of it will you have to censor because of what you guys are dealing with over there?
Oh, I don't have to censor anything.
Yeah, they won't come after you for the things you post online. Is it just live
No.
performance that they're really monitoring?
Oh, as in Canada in general, I thought you meant like my company. No, no, it's not like the way it is in England, where they'll basically say you've committed hate speech. That is on the books here. There is hate speech laws, but they don't, they're not knocking on doors the way they are in England. They're not telling people that they have to, they're being mean in the streets. So it is there, but the culture is not in line with that. I think it's because there's so many, in England, they sort of all adopt this super left wing culture, whereas in Canada, the immigrant population obviously has their views on on gender and everything. Basically, what I'm saying is there's nobody can get together on anything, so they're not going to get together and say this person's mean, because then if somebody says something against gay people, the Indians will be like, well, we don't care, and the Sikhs will be like, well, we don't care, and it's like there's so many of everything. Like if you say something about white people, obviously, so nobody's going to care. You say something about there's no culture left in Canada. There's no commitment to any one type of thing. You can't get a bunch of people together to do anything in Canada except watch a hockey game.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, and then it's not as bad as I thought. I didn't know because I talked to the guys from Danger Cats at a point, and they were, pretty worried. Well, not worried, I wouldn't say, but they were just annoyed with everything that was going on, and I wasn't sure if that was like a government thing or if that was just like venue to venue that they were having problems.
Well, the problem that they got into was the fact that the government broadcasters started talking about them, which is insane. That they're because you I say this about a lot of political parties and a lot of networks, but in Canada especially, you're like two people away from the head of the government or like high ranking government officials. Like I could talk to somebody who talks to somebody who's like one of the top leaders in the country, for example. And then when you get like two, you know, fat lonely women at CBC, which is the state broadcaster, and they have a problem with a joke somebody made 5 years ago in a roast battle, all they have to do is print that article, that the government backed article, and then they had the premier, or the governor if you will, of British Columbia come out and say how bad these people are because they're making jokes about a convicted serial killer. So it doesn't take much for a person to want to get somebody under attack, because there's still that clamoring here that there isn't in the US for attacking hate speech and dealing with bigots and everything. We're a little bit behind on that. But is the government actively coming out and like coming to your house and flagging you and giving you social credit points? Not officially, but they had a unique situation where, native groups and, angry women online and the government broadcaster all came together and said, these guys haven't said sorry, so we need to attack them.
Yeah, that's weird. That's what I've always told people about cancellation. People don't get mad at what you say. They get mad because you won't say sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it usually comes down to. They want you on your knees. They want you to I didn't mean it. I shouldn't have said it. I realized I was in the wrong. That's what they want. They're not so much concerned, but the thing you said was just something to come after you for. It was just a reason to make you say sorry, like that situation with David Lucas, that
Mm-hmm.
was a big thing. But I always warn people, if there's one group you don't want to run up against, it is Black Twitter. And now that is Black Instagram. But those two, and especially those two, combined forces on him. And that's just, it's what it is. Like, I've run into problems with Black Twitter in the past, a long time ago. It's all behind us now. I am once again invited to the
Okay.
cookout. But my cookout privileges have been restored, but there was a moment where me and Black Twitter ran through it. And because, I'm a huge troll. And so I'm really used to dealing with that stuff. But Black Twitter is one that I will admit you do not want to run up against, because they will make the time to get you to.
Well, I remember that there was like a space or a podcast, whatever you call it, on Twitter, like the night of David Lucas's joke coming out, and just saying like, we need to excommunicate him from black people. And then it was this whole conversation they were having about this being an example of white supremacy. And I sent him a screenshot of it, and it was just wild because you've got a black guy talking about a white kid and nothing about these at Kyle Rittenhouse, but then the George Floyd jokes come in. So then, like, my point is, there's not a lot of truth to a lot of this stuff, and by that I mean it doesn't matter what actually happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. It doesn't matter what the jokes about the danger cats were actually about, and it doesn't matter what actually happened with George Floyd. It's like you refuse to apologize, just like you're saying, and by refusing to apologize, that shows that in the future you won't bow down to us when we really want you to, and we can't, blackmail you into doing so. So they don't like that. Not particularly Black Twitter, but the crazy people in general don't like it when you just say no to them, because I think they come from, that place in society, the type of person who's out on the streets and they say, you don't have my permission to film me, and then you have to go away, you're not welcome here. The people who don't get their way, they have a real hard time with dealing with people not apologizing to them.
Oh yeah, well that's definitely what it is, and it is in a lot of in a lot of cases crazy people that are pushing it, But there's just certain there. Then there's, like you said. I mean, like, I get it what you were saying about different venues having to cancel things because they're receiving death threats and stuff like that. Because I still get a lot of comics hitting me up or talking to me about David Lucas, and they'll be like, he shouldn't have apologized, and I was like, well, wait until you're in that situation and you have things actually starting to shut down for you. And you also know that you do have bills, and you know that you do have a place that you live, and that, you're possibly not going to be able to pay your rent if all of these things fall through or go through the way they're trying to push them. And then at a point, sometimes you do have to apologize when you had that to consider. It's not as easy as just being like, we'd all like to live in a perfect world where we completely don't have to apologize and can just stand on whatever we say. But sometimes the consequences really do kind of outweigh whatever it is your point was with wanting to stick to that. And then you have to think about, like, is this worth ruining my entire life over right now?
Well, that's the exact reason I think that I could pinpoint why I've tried to craft my life into a position where I don't have to apologize. But that's without me saying anything that's really angered people, or at least without people pointing it out that I've angered them. So I haven't been in those shoes, but
Well,
we'll
same with
see.
me. Like, that's why I don't really think about that stuff, because even when I was at, like, I told you the kind of money some of these spots were paying, so I wasn't relying on that for anything. So for me to just say fuck it to all of that, it wasn't really a big thing, as far as socially, like me going out and stuff like that, that changed. But I've also never been a person that needs a lot of people around me. Technically, people get on my nerves. And so I don't really like a lot of people around me. So that part has been all the way good, like having peace and quiet has been the best thing for me. But like, when it came to the money part, it's just like, yeah, I'm not really worried about that. I don't think about that. I can always work the road, which is independent of all this stuff, and so I was just on the road like 2 of the last 3 weekends I was on the road. So yeah, it's good when you can make your life where it's like you don't have to. But if you're working with these clubs and venues, which David Lucas does, like Funny Bones, and he deals with improvs and stand up live, and those clubs have a little bit more of a, where they start to get nervous, and then that changes what you do. Doug Stanhope would be like the ideal, like that would be kind of the best way to go, as far as if you're a comic that wants to continue to tour and be able to say whatever you want, because the venues he deals with are like, bars and stuff like that just let him have all of the door or most of the door. I think with him, he gets all of the door for these places. And so, like, they're just happy to have the business. So they're not worried about any kind of, like people trying to cancel or anything. But if you're going to work at comedy clubs in this country, you're probably going to have some times where you have to apologize. But yeah,
Work in any place where you can smoke inside. That's the goal for me. I don't even smoke cigarettes, but I want anything I'm involved with to allow smoking. I just think it's a
okay.
different vibe, Ty. There should be one flight per day from each airline to each destination where you're allowed to smoke. There should be smoking days at Major League Baseball games. I want to bring the fun back.
You're preaching to the choir because I smoke.
There you go. Just imagine you're inside I don't know, Dallas Cowboys AT&T Stadium, and you can smoke cigarettes or vape or weed. I think that's going to bring in a lot of business.
Yeah.
Personally.
Well, push it and make it happen, and I'll show up smoking.
All right, Thai Rivera, you can catch him with his soon-to-be wife, Leonardo Joni. I'm sure that's going to happen at some point. You guys are going to be married. And anything else you want to say?
No, well, people can check out my YouTube. It's just my name, Thai Rivera. But yeah, check out my YouTube channel. Support me on X. That's Thai Rivera as well. I would say, my Instagram, but I don't care about Instagram or Facebook. But yeah, no, it was good talking to you.
Turn it up, Jordan.